Greetings, this is Brent from PathandTarot, and in this video we're going to be reading with two decks, the Wild Unknown Tarot and the Animal Spirit Oracle from the Wild Unknown by Kim Krantz. So both decks, they're great on their own, but I think combined they work really well. You start to see some really interesting things happen when you combine these two decks specifically. To build on that, I also want to have this video be almost like a tutorial for how to combine other types of decks with any tarot deck, or how you would read with, say, two tarot decks as an example. You could do that. So this video really is to establish sort of tarot reading methodology to incorporate two different decks, because I believe that the more decks you have, the higher resolution, and you start to read in high definition in a way, because you get to have the benefit of two different random systems versus just, say, one system, which is still very good. There are other reading methods that can deliver lots of depth, different card spreads, right? Lots of things like that can deliver really interesting readings, but this is a way to do just that, create more complexity in a reading just by simply having another deck involved. And so that's what we're gonna do. I love this deck a lot. It's so good. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna ask the cards, like, hey, how do we deliver like a good reading with both of these decks? Show us how to do that. Let's see what patterns we can figure out. So that's what we're going to do in this reading. We're going to look at the cards and kind of see what is there for us to play with. So the really cool thing about the Animal Spirit Oracle is that it has the elements associated with them, and that's why this works so well together, is that they have that. Not every Oracle deck has those types of symbols in them, right? So you have to look at those decks and approach them in whichever way you want. But these are the things you want to look for, because the tarot is really it's a foundation of elements, right? Like the Western elements, you've got the five elements. So the swords here is an air element, and we've got the hawk. It's an air element too. So that's really cool to see. So we can bring up some of the notes here about these two cards. So right away, what we have, the first thing we can say about these two cards is that we've got a matching elemental set. Both elements are air. So that's really cool. So we can start with that first. So we've got the Daughter of Swords. So the Daughter of Swords is like, honest, insightful. So you can think of that as the, like the page of the court, right? Like the first court card. So we can look at that, and then we've got the hawk. It's like a watchful, all-seeing messenger. And we can actually start to use these in and out of balance bits of the guidebook, right? So when in balance, we've got intuitive, you can see clearly, and so right now we could actually say that it's in balance because we've got two air elements, so they would harmonize. If it wasn't the case, then you could read this as when out of balance. So we have that to kind of go with at the moment. So what we can do is grab another card here. Do a tarot card. We've got the Eight of Cups. So this is kind of cool. So stagnation, kind of neat. So maybe this card is like the card that you need. This method is a way to avoid stagnation in your tarot readings, right? So if you look at the hawk, it represents like an all-seeing eye, right? Talking about that high definition I was referring to, like a high definition view of the tarot and its cards, by virtue of having this second oracle deck that connects in an elemental way. So we could actually begin to build the message with that. And then the Daughter of Swords, that could basically just represent us, like the viewers, right? So the court cards, they can represent a few things, but one of them can be the person being read for. So me as the reader or you as the viewer, you could be represented in the court card. And then when you start to get more court cards, like 2, 3, even more than that, you can begin to look at it as the people involved in the reading. Like if you're asking about like a situation, people may be important to that message, or it could be like the layers of yourself, because you're like, we are complex human beings. Like we've got a lot of stuff going on, like different personas that happen. We act differently and around different people. It's just kind of the way it is, right? So you can deconstruct yourself through the core cards. So far this is an interesting message. We've got the Eight of Cups. It's a water energy, so it doesn't really harmonize with either of these two cards. Right? We've got a strong air element happening. So this is cool. We can actually kind of say that, hey, this is like what we want to avoid. So let's grab another card here. Maybe we'll make them a little bit smaller. There we go. So maybe we'll put the card right here, because this is like the panther. It's a fire energy. So maybe we'll move it somewhere over here. Maybe that makes a little sense, because fire and air, they harmonize, right? So those are the elemental dignities that you can work within. So air and fire, they harmonize and match. Water and earth, they harmonize and match. And anything else, it doesn't harmonize. And spirit matches with anything. So spirit matches with itself or any other element. But right now we got a fire element, so annihilation of the unnecessary, so purging, right? So when in balance, brave and productive. So already we're beginning to develop like a message of like of getting rid of and purging these like ingrained tarot reading methods, right? Like as good as the old spreads are, like say like the Celtic Cross as an example, or even just like a 3-card spread, they're great for learning, but possibly if you stick to that and only use those methods, then you will stagnate. And so the Panther is here to say, hey, let's clear the space and be brave, be productive, and try something new. Now this isn't to say you have to try this like as your new thing. You have to continuously grow and avoid the stagnation. So purge that and avoid this. So let's grab another tarot card here. And we got the Hierophant. Perfect. So this whole quadrant right here, this section harmonizes really, really well, because you've got the elements that are matching. Got a court card that matches. It harmonizes here. We've got the Hierophant. It's a spirit. It's part of the major series. So it matches this section right here very, very nicely. So this is like your mentor, like the key to like deeper knowledge. It talks about like going to a workshop, right? So in a way that this is just like, it's coming out in a really cool way. We've asked like, hey, what can, learn about like tarot reading methods and stuff. And this is a great message. So, once again, the tarot is very uncanny. And, look at the pictures too here. This is kind of neat. So we've got this like, light happening like with the hawk, right? You see these like rays, but then you've got the bolt of lightning coming down here to connect with the Hierophant. So already we can see these like pictures begin to match, and there's some darkness happening up with the Daughter of Swords, and we've got a dark background with the Panther too. So that's kind of neat. So these are the things you can start to look at, when you're using different decks, or even just like, you can draw some of this and just use it with just your one tarot deck. Like, treat this as these like small tips to try different things in your tarot reading. And just considering the elemental dignities just with one tarot deck is a really cool thing as itself, in itself, right? Understanding that gives like a new layer of depth in your readings, especially if you don't want to use like reverse cards or things like that. You want to add like a layer of complexity. It's a really cool thing. So let's grab another. I mean, it's got to go here. So before we reveal the card, why don't we talk about just how these cards got placed, right? So we started off with like 2 cards. They kind of just were in the space as they, needed to be. There's not much, put them side by side, and that's kind of all you can do, right? But as different cards came out, we moved things around a bit, and that's what you can do with your tarot reading. So you don't have to be constrained by a specific spread pattern, like this card goes here, and if it's here it means this. You don't have to do that when you're tarot reading. You can just have the cards move about and place them where they feel like they matter, they mean, provide the most meaning, right? So we were lucky enough to see the Hierophant fit here in this corner, but it made sense to do that, right? As we've talked it through, so it made sense for it to go there. And in this case here, we've got, this like module kind of built up, and it makes sense for this card to go here. It doesn't, make sense for it to be there. At least not in this moment. Who knows? It could be a different situation next time, but that's the reasoning for doing something like this. So let's check it out. Perfect. So, after discussing that and explaining, this card deserves to be here, and it does. Like, look at it. So now we've got water. See, the water harmonizes right here. So this card is meant to be here. It's not like we knew that before it happened, right? We revealed it. We talked about it. And the card said, hey, this is the right card to be here. So the water energies harmonize perfectly right here. And we've got the elemental energies of air and fire along with spirit to match nicely over on this section. So we've used the just strictly dealing with the elements to figure out where the cards need to be. And when they're in the right place, you can get a little bit more information about how and why the elemental energies work. And if you were forced to put cards that were out of balance, then that also means something too. So we will always want to be trying to get something into balance, or matching the elemental dignities. We're just borrowing the words of the Oracle Guidebook, because when the card is in balance, the crocodile is wise, it's patient, it's silent, it's a powerhouse, right? Crocodiles are very strong with their with their jaw and their mouth, but they're wise. Like they're going to be patient. They're going to sneak up on their prey, and get it. So we've got a nice message here. It's kind of interesting because like we've got like the stagnation of like reading, but the crocodile balances out that energy by giving us like the idea of like patience, and that's kind of cool, because to get in touch with this sort of new style of reading, it requires patience. But once you start to figure that out and let your intuition take the forefront, it becomes very powerful. And this is a great reading because we've seen a lot of interesting matches, and that's the type of power that you'll be able to harness yourself when you start to use these types of ideas. So if you've got these 2 decks in your collection, which you may very well have, these are very popular tarot decks, just as an aside. If you have them, use them this way. See what happens. Kim Kranz didn't, and I believe it's intentional, but she didn't really give us too much direction on like how to use these cards. And again, I say that's sort of on purpose, and that's a way for us as the readers, right, the performative artistic element, to take this in a new direction. So I think this is a way to kind of take it in a new direction. And what we're going to do, I think we can probably make this work, is if I move these cards down here, we can get 2 more cards up here. So we've got this as like a completed section, and we'll see what we can get as like our final message. Let's do that. Ooh, crazy. The deepest shadows of the self. But the deer, it's an earth sign. So it's out of balance. Because this is, the swords are the air energy, right? And this is an earth energy. So air and earth don't really match. So we could say it's out of balance. because we're gonna think about the cards in just this section here, and that's it. So protective, dark vision. So what we could say is that like these readings, or this method of reading the cards like this, can be quite revealing. And in a way, you may want to develop a way to like maybe protect yourself, or what can come out of this is that it gives you a concern for these systems and how they work. So not really like a negative concern, it may be more of like a just an awareness type of concern that we can look at. So you would take concern to the point that if you don't develop or mix up your tarot reading methods, incorporate new things here and there, then you will end up like stagnating, and you will sort of end up in like darkness and worries and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we've ended up here is basically a reading that talks about like almost the dangers of like succumbing to like the comfort of like your skills. I feel like in a way like the reading really wants to tell us like, hey, explore, develop a all-seeing type of mentality. We're doing this like kind of education here, practice, deepening your skills. And I think that's kind of like the core of the message, is to like really focus on that. Take as much as you can, not only from like other readers if they provide that type of expansive content that's more for learning, but read books, like read lots of tarot books. You're going to find that there's a lot of stuff that is very common amongst those books, like say card meanings and stuff, but I always find that authors tend to get in their own viewpoints about the tarot. So any author that tries to tackle the tarot as a subject always is I find, has brought something really new and interesting to that text. But there's going to be like a lot of overlap of information. Like the tarot is a system. It's kind of developed into like a thing that it is what it is, right? So it's not like they're trying to change or reinvent the wheel of fortune, pun intended, woohoo. But so when you consider that, like you want to look at trying extracting something of value that's interesting from as many tarot books as you can. Get into those subjects. Looking at say the Golden Dawn as an example, you can get into their readings and draw out a ton of information, a lot of great stuff. That's where the PathandTarot deck really came from, is a lot of those just basically their text, the Cicero and Cicero books. Just outstanding. So that's an example in itself as a way for me as someone who's learning the tarot. I was able to extract a lot of their information, use it as an influence to make something for myself, basically. And that's, you can do the same for yourself, right? You can make your own tarot deck. You can develop new reading methods that are of your own invention, and develop yourself as a reader that way. You don't have to play within the confines of what's already been established with these patterned readings. They're good to learn, because if you just start and you're like, I don't know where to start, then you gotta learn those models first. But once you got a grip on it and you understand it, it's been a few years, then you want to start to develop and move outwards and start to experiment and improvise, and start to create things for yourself, and then record and write them. Like you want to be, you not only want to develop new things, but write it out, make videos, document the process of it, everything connected to it, the reasoning, like all your influences. Try to take an academic approach to it if you can, so that not only you have what you've created on its own, but like the abstract behind it, like the written work and all that, and then you can use that as content on like your web page, your blog and stuff like that, right? You can really develop something of substance on top of creating content for like social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, like whatever platforms you want. But there you have it. That was pretty fantastic. I really enjoyed that reading. We saw unusual things, as you can see, and it sort of worked out in really cool ways. But we'll see you in the next reading.